Hi, my name is Darley, and I'd like to share with you a little bit of my story of osteoporosis. My story doesn't start on the day that I discovered I had it. I believe it starts when I was born, and I'll explain a little bit about that in another video. I had this belief that although I'd heard that osteoporosis was genetic, and my mum has osteoporosis, that I would never get it. I believe because I did weight training from 21 to 33, that I ate a healthy diet, that I was somehow immune. However, what I've discovered in my research is osteoporosis is caused by life. From the moment we are born, everything that happens builds on that picture. So if you do have a family member that has osteoporosis, the chances are you might end up getting it, depending on what happens in your life and depending on how bone aware you are. My mum was diagnosed 6 years ago, and at that point we bought books, we did lots of research, and she chose to go along the drug route because she didn't really know what else to do, and she felt that at her age, so she's 80 in July, she felt at her age that it was important for her to do and be advised and guided by the doctor. I, however, am very different, and I don't like what the osteoporosis drugs, from what I've seen and read, what I've heard other people saying, I don't like what the drugs do. And I actually believe that the body has the ability to heal itself given the right ingredients. So in January 2018, I'd come out the shower, I was singing and having a great laugh with my dogs, and I leaned over and I went to pick up a bag of clothes on the bed, and I heard 3 loud cracks. And I can tell you, I swore quite a lot. I clung onto the bed. The pain was horrendous. I remember looking at the ceiling as if somehow I'd find God or some universal energy or something sitting on the ceiling that could tell me the purpose for what had just happened. So at that point, I didn't know I had osteoporosis. What I thought was that an old injury that I had in my rib had just somehow something had happened. I actually have no idea. But what I did was I rang the osteopath that I was using at the time. I rang her, saw her that day. I saw her a week later, and when I saw her the week later, a couple of hours later, the pain had intensified to the point I could hardly breathe. So I got someone to drive me the following day to a doctor that is an hour's drive away. And he took one look at my back and my spine and was horrified by the state that it was in. And given that I'd had about 8 months osteopathy treatment, I was very surprised that he was so shocked. I had imagined that my spine was in pretty good condition. Anyway, I went for some x-rays, and I took the x-rays to a chiropractor who took one look at them. He showed me, that I had compression fractures, and he took one look at them and he went, "Would you like the bad news or would you like the bad news?" And you know that feeling when you just think, I think my world is about to come crashing in. Something's about to happen that I don't think I'm going to enjoy. So he showed me how porous my bones were in the vertebrae, in the thoracic region. And then he said, they look a bit better in the lumbar. So, long story short, I can't get to my normal doctor because, first of all, I can't drive, and I need to ask people to drive me. And, when it's an hour's drive either way, and then you've got the doctor's appointment, that's a bit much. So a friend started taking me to a local doctor. So I went to this local doctor, and he was lovely. He put me in touch with a rheumatologist, and the rheumatologist, although I'd put a lot of information together, pretty much ignored it and just said, you need to go for a bone density test. So I went for this bone density test, which it's farcical. I wasn't driving, my friend was driving us away from the hospital, and I looked at the notes and I thought, they're only scanned L1 to L4. Like, why would you do that? That doesn't make sense when I have these x-rays that show that there's a problem in a different part of my spine. So we turned around, went back into the hospital, and I asked the radiographer, and she just shrugged her shoulders and went, that's what we do. So I've got my x-rays, I have my bone density test, and I go back to the doctor and the rheumatologist, and I write out again, lots of questions, a lot of other information about me, and she just didn't even look at it. She just said, you have to take this, and she gave me a prescription, told me to take these drugs, calcium and vitamin D, and I said, what do I do? And she just said, take them, and I'll see you in a month. I actually started crying in the surgery, and I felt so foolish because I was scared. I was scared when the chiropractor said, do you want the bad news or the bad news? I haven't seen a spine in this condition on someone as young as you ever. So I am just living in fear. No one is listening to me. No one's giving me any other solutions other than to take these drugs that I have researched and I do not want to take. So I went home, and I actually spent about 16 days in bed because the pain was excruciating. I put my 3 dogs into kennels because I absolutely couldn't look after them. I had people, have a cleaner. I had my friends do my shopping. I live in an old house that has no central heating, so I have a log burner, so people were having to carry my logs upstairs. It was horrendous. So I'm in pain, I'm in fear, no one is listening to me, and I don't know what to do. So the first thing I did was I purchased a brand new journal, because as a writer and a journaler, I know that writing is healing. So I started writing, and I used it as a research journal to get clarity over my feelings. You name it, I put it into my journal. So I had my journal, which was great. I also, back in 2016, I got diagnosed with an overactive thyroid, which I turned around in 6 weeks through nutrition. And at that point, I went and did my second naturopathic nutrition course. And I've, since my early 20s, I've been interested in nutrition. Not that I've always followed my own advice and what is good for me to eat. However, I have an interest. And so I went and did this course. So I made a decision that I would, my diet, to all intents and purposes, was very good. But I thought, what we'll do is we'll do a massive review of my diet. So I reviewed the diet. What I also did was went and spoke to a friend of mine who's also a naturopathic nutritionist, because I felt that I really needed some support. I needed somebody to look at my life history. Remember, I said osteoporosis is caused by life. I needed them to go back through my life history and see if there was anything that I hadn't spotted, anything that gave us some extra clues on how I could heal the inflammation, dehydration. Although I drank masses of water. We both believed that there was a picture of dehydration there. So there's inflammation, dehydration, and I just needed someone to look at what I was eating to say, was that a good or a not so good thing to do? So I worked with a nutritionist, and I didn't go back and see an osteopath until I was able to drive. So from the point of seeing the rheumatologist and being given a drug prescription, I took immediate action. Journaling, nutrition, visualization, meditation, and researching. And in that researching, that gave me lots and lots of hope. I joined a few forums. I had to leave some because some of the stories were really heartbreaking, and I found that very difficult to cope with while going through the stuff in my own head. But there was one forum that was, and still is, very, very helpful, and that gave me pointers in terms of my research. And I learned to research in a very different way. Rather than believing what I read, I would look at several different pieces of research, and then I'd look at it in the context of, like, say, like my thyroid, for example, or healing my gut. I bought loads and loads of books. So everything I did was massive, massive action. So by reading a lot and watching videos and doing my research and journaling and working with another nutritionist, I found a way to create a healing plan. So I'm obviously still doing that. You know, I'm in a lot of pain currently as we speak. I've got a new osteopath who has been absolutely incredible, and I start acupuncture next week. So what I've tried to do is everything in little baby bite-sized pieces. So, you know, I've done this, and then I've done that, and then I've done something else. So each time I can say, so, like, where am I? How do I feel? What's going on? What can I look at next? Okay, let's do that, and then let's see what improvements are coming. So I am absolutely healing. And the other wonderful piece of news is the doctor that I originally saw, and I saw when I had an overactive thyroid. Now that I'm able to drive, I went to see him. I took my folder of information. He read it. He listened to me. And he has agreed to work with me on a natural solution. So how about that? Isn't that fantastic? So yes, I'm in pain. Yes, every meal I make, I look at and I think, like, what are the nutrients in it? Don't eat rubbish. I'm taking supplements. I've always been absolutely rubbish at supplements, but I've read a lot about it, and I'm thinking I'll do whatever it takes to support me and my body so that I can heal. And out of all of this, I made a decision to write a book, and it's called You, Me and Osteoporosis. And I've written that because what I found was there is lots of fabulous, fabulous books and resources, but there's not a book for the newly diagnosed to look at a whole life healing process that not only heals osteoporosis, but heals other unexpressed emotions and other things that are going on. So I felt that somehow I had some purpose in all of this, and that is to write a book, to create a blog, and to share whatever I can in a way that makes it easy for people who are scared like I was, to come to terms with this and heal and grow and be able to enjoy life. And that's kind of where I find myself. So that's me. I'm Dale Darley, daledarley.com, soulwritersacademy.com, and naturalosteoporosis.com. So please do come and connect with me.